Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Like Anime, your source for all the current anime opinions,
Yeah, feelings
thoughts, thoughts and prayers about anime.
and things that aren't anime.
Yeah, things vaguely related to anime, but mostly just anime. My name's George, and I'm back with Tony.
Yeah, that's me. I'm the other voice.
Like, who is this guy in my ear? I don't know about this. Introduce yourself right now.
He sounds like a nice fella. I'd just do whatever he tells you to do.
Okay, watch this, watch that, subscribe, give us money.
Get me a beer. Yeah, those things.
Yeah, we're continuing another week into this spring 2021 season.
Yeah, week 3, I think. I don't know. I'm starting to lose track.
Well, it's hard because these shows don't all start in the same like 7 day time frame. So
Right.
we've got some episode twos, some episode threes, kind of a mixed bag. But we're getting into it. We're beyond all the first episodes, and we have what we're watching and what we like and what we're thinking about maybe dropping or maybe getting rid of this very episode. Who knows?
And what we're thinking about adding.
I'm not adding too much, but
Mm.
you might be. You're a
I,
voracious watcher,
it's so weird
viewer.
because I felt like I was super behind and super busy this week where like I was going to fall behind and I wasn't going to be able to watch all the shows. And then I found myself having completely caught up and I had like a day before the next episode aired. And I was like, what am I going to do now? I guess I'll read some light novels and, whatnot.
Nice,
So,
cool. We can dig into that.
mhm.
I will add, just as a side note, that this very day that we're recording, I finally caught up on One Piece, the manga, and it's 1,000+ chapters, and feels like I don't know. It feels like I can move on with my life in a certain in a certain light. I'll still keep reading it, of course, as it comes out, but I don't know. Feels like I've championed something, and
You haven't decided to drop it yet?
yeah,
Hasn't
I'm on the fence. I'm like, all right, where's this going? But anyway, let's dive into it, shall
hasn't
we?
gotten to be same old enough yet, I guess. All right. Well, let me know when it does, I guess. All right. So, we're going to start off as we always do with the Wednesday show. That is Super Cub. You can start. I'll start. What do you want to do here?
Super Cub, yeah. I mean, it's a very nice slice of life, Iyashikei,
Hmm.
very soothing. So not a lot happens, but we had a few things occur in this episode.
Yeah, the nature of a Yashike is generally, yeah, not much happens. But in this episode, like at the beginning of the episode, Koguma, our girl, stands up and announces to the class that she has a motorcycle, and everyone's like, "What?" Well, there's a beat, I guess I should say. Like
Yeah,
she announces it, and then she just sort of stands there for a minute, and everyone's like quiet, like, why is she announcing this to the entire class? This is weird. Or it seems like that's what they're thinking. And then everyone comes over and starts asking her about her motorcycle and stuff like that. And
I have a question about that scene
hmm,
because it seemed to me that because I was like, wow, she just did that because if
oh,
and this episode as well has solidified that she's very anxious, very socially awkward,
yeah.
very just kind of squeamish about social situations in general. But when they showed that, and it was near the beginning, it immediately they were all asking her questions and stuff, and they were all there was that beat as you said.
Hmm,
But then it immediately after that cut to her not talking to anyone and kind of so my the way I saw it, it was like that was kind of in her head, like she was imagining, like fantasizing
mm,
about saying that because later on in the episode she does tell tell classmates about it, and
yeah,
she
but
one of the
so
girls.
so that girl like comes up to her and starts talking to her about her super cub. So like she already knew at that point. It wasn't.
Well, she brings it up. She actually, I don't know. I mean, from what I recall,
Maybe I'm
like
remembering incorrectly. I don't know. It's probably more likely.
you do watch a lot more than I do. But yeah, I remembered like her, from my recollection, her kind of fantasizing in class about announcing that she got a super cub or got a bike, motorized scooter or whatever you want to call it, and then later on I think they were in home ec class and they were learning how to like, oh yeah, she sewed a bag and
She was
stuff.
making a helmet bag. Yeah.
Yeah, and some other classmates were talking near her, and then she kind of just blurted it out awkwardly, which
Mm.
was to me like way more in line with
Yeah,
how we
I guess that's
understand
true.
her. And then that girl, I think I wrote her name down, but this one kind of rambunctious active girl, Reiko, that's her name.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, she like latches onto her, and it turns out that she has like this like very rare super coat, and is very
Mm.
knowledgeable about those kind of vehicles in general.
I remember. I'm trying to think. I don't remember if it was part of the opening scene or if it was later that like when yeah, it was. It was during that when she's telling the other girl that she got a super cub that the other classmates are then like, "Oh, that's a scooter. That's not a real motorcycle or something
Mm,
like that."
yeah,
Which I thought was still relating back to this initial scene. So you're saying that initial scene was just all her imagination of like, how cool would it be? But why would she have that awkward pause then? I don't know.
I think, yeah. I mean, I could either of us could be wrong, but that was just my perception of it because and there's something I really like about this show. Like I had given the first episode a 6, and this episode became a 7
Mm,
because I really like the angle of her being socially awkward and the show really diving into that. And because I relate to it a lot. I don't know if how many other people do, but to me in my mind it was like because later on she this girl Reiko,
mm,
talks to her, and then she shows her cub that she has, like some old, like, used to be for postal workers, and it's like shiny and red, and
yeah.
it looks pretty cool. And then our main character, whatever her name is,
I have it here.
yeah, I think I have it too, but she,
Koguma.
oh, Foguma,
Ko.
oh, Koguma. Yeah, I didn't have that written down. But anyway, our Koguma, our main character, she goes home and she's kind of like high on this interaction,
Mm,
and she ends up, I don't know if that's later maybe, but she ends up going home and kind of like hoping, she's like thinking about this girl a lot and hoping that she talks to her again.
mm,
And I related to that so much. And then when she actually does go to school the next day, she manages to like squeak out like "good morning" as she walks
mhm,
by her, and
mhm.
Reiko is just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Um, so going back to that original part that we're talking about, that's how I took it. I think
Mm,
because I relate to it so much that, like, if it wouldn't have, like, because I feel like if it would have actually happened, that she would have already sparked up conversation and like made connections at that point. But it wasn't until like the next, later that day when she was in home ec, and there she was making a bag and they were doing sewing stuff,
mm,
where she actually starts talking to Reiko. Um, and to me, I think that was like what gave her confidence to actually speak out and say something, is that she was
mm.
like fantasizing about it and like people being receptive to it. But
Yeah, I guess my read on it was somewhat different.
mm,
It was more that the opposite, that the thing that she said at the beginning actually happened, and that's what gave her confidence to then tell Reiko about it later when she was like, oh yeah, I'm making this bag for my helmet and gloves for my super cub. You know, I don't know.
yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, maybe we'll each have to rewatch just that scene just to see
Mm,
like uh what we think, because I hear what you're saying, like it could go either way. I think we just took it a little slightly differently.
yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I'm going through my notes here trying to find out what we haven't covered yet. I think we covered most of it. There was the so after the talk with Reiki, and then they meet up after school and they show each other their bikes. Um, Koguma is driving home and she gets to this intersection and she seems to take a pause to think about which way she's going, even though she goes the same way every day, so she knows which
Mm.
way to go. She's thinking about sort of breaking out of that. Um, I think,
Yeah,
which
and
is
Reiko had kind of sparked that, being like,
yeah.
what, you haven't gone anywhere? Like, you
Yeah,
got a
you can
cub.
you can go anywhere with this thing, right? Yeah. Um, but that day she just goes straight home, I think.
Mm.
And then the next day after she, says good morning to Reiko, and then Reiko comes over and joins her for lunch.
Mm.
Actually, Reiko turns down her other friends for lunch who were like, "Hey, Reiko, come come for lunch. She's like, no, I'm having lunch with a friend. And then Koguma,
Yeah,
Koguma
she's within
is like,
earshot
yeah,
of all
sort of.
this.
She hears it and she's just sort of sitting there, and then Reiko comes over and like pulls up a chair and says, "We're eating lunch together today. Let's go." Like, or she doesn't pull up a chair, she grabs her and drags her to the roof, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that to me, like, just touches me deeply because when I was in school, and even to a certain extent now, but I was so shy and so, in my shell that I completely relied on, people like Reiko to, seek me out and, kind of, make me talk and, want to be friends. And so to me, like, that whole interaction and their relationship so far, like, just speaks
Yeah.
true of life, I think.
Yeah. It's pretty, I mean, it's really well written.
Mm.
I was going to say it's pretty well written. No.
Yeah,
That's
it's well
inaccurate. It is really well written. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, the characters feel authentic in most ways. I don't know, her Koguma's aversion to people is maybe more extreme than I've seen in other people, I guess. So there's some inauthenticity to it, but overall, fairly authentic writing for all the characters, I think.
I hear what you're saying, but to me, I think that it's often perceived as less than it is. Like when you're actually when somebody has those issues of social anxiety and stuff, when inside your head, it's a lot worse than others, perceive it to be. Like you're like, oh no, you're fine. Like you have friends, and it's kind of hand waved in a way, where it's like, nah, you're, what are you talking about? But like, because I wrote down in my notes, like you were leading up to this, but the next day they have lunch together. Reiko goes out of her way to spend time with her, and they eat out by their bikes, and they have a nice conversation. I think that comes up, of like, why don't you go, why don't you travel somewhere, do something now that you have this freedom. And so then I think what you're relating to after school that day.
Yeah, so after school that day, she comes to that same intersection that we saw before, exactly the same shot. So, like, well done for making the callback, writers.
Whereas she didn't go in before in the first episode, she drove to a store.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean making the callback to the intersection?
Making a callback to the intersection,
yes,
because it's exactly the same shot of the exact same intersection. She's pulling up in exactly the same way, and it may even be the exact same cars in the intersection. I don't remember for sure.
Like a literal and figurative crossroad.
It is, yes, both of those, and yeah, and she turns right instead of going straight, which is the way she went before. She's just sort of off in a direction that she doesn't know what's out there. She doesn't even know where she's going. She's just going because she can.
Yeah.
So yeah,
joyriding.
Yeah, basically. And yeah, she goes on an adventure. She ends up at a grocery store. Not the most spectacular destination by any means, but she seems happy to have gone somewhere that isn't just the norm going home thing. So
yeah, which to me was small but profound, because she even thinks when she is walking in that store, which I kind of jumped the gun a minute ago, but yeah, in the first episode, she in the middle of the night drives to a store. She can't sleep and just keeps thinking about her super cub.
Yeah.
And she doesn't actually go in the store, and then her bike won't start and all that. But in this episode, she actually goes in, and then she thinks to herself, she's like, wow, I've never, I usually don't buy groceries, do grocery shopping after school. I do that like on a day off. She has like this rigid sort of way she's been living her life, which may speak to, in the first episode, we talked about a lot how somber she was, and just the whole feeling of her character was very downtrodden. But in this one, it's like the little light crept in, and she was able to do something and kind of, go a different way.
Yeah. And she finds, I don't remember exactly what it was she found that was on sale, but there was something there that was a good price, she said, when she went into the store. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
Something that she always, we had seen her eating before at home, something she normally buys, I guess.
Which I guess as a side note, in this episode, she does eat oyakodon.
Right. That's the lunch. She's like, when she's sitting down and she's making her lunch, she gets it's just a bag, microwave bag of like oyakodon. And that's right before Reika announces that she's eating lunch with a friend or whatever.
Yeah. But
Um,
that first day, as I recall, before she talks to anyone, she like it's lunchtime and she's in the classroom and she pours the oyakodon onto her rice and then she looks behind her at the microwave in the classroom and there's a bunch of people at it and she just goes, "Ah, no, I'm good." So she eats it.
oh, was
Just
that was the first day then? Oh,
I'm pretty
okay.
sure.
Yeah, I might be mixing it up. It's been like a week since I watched it.
Yeah,
So,
I
um,
watched it all more recently, but
so she
yeah,
just pours cold oyakodon on her rice.
yeah. So similar to the intersection that they call back to in that same episode, they
Mm,
call back to that as well when she, the next day has lunch with a friend
hmm
and does all that. But that's another thing I related to so much. Like, it gives me too much anxiety to wait in line for a microwave or whatever.
mm,
Like I'll just eat at room temperature.
mm. That sounds nasty, actually. I don't know.
But I wanted to add, Tony here made us some oyakodon this past week,
Mhm.
inspired by this episode.
Yeah. So when she was opening it, you could read the package. I mean, upside down in Japanese, but you could read it.
I think they
And
subtitled it too in the. Um,
they probably did. Yeah.
yeah, because I
Yeah.
remember recognizing because I hadn't watched the episode yet when I got to have some.
Mm. Yeah. And it said oyakodon, which I was like, what is that? I haven't heard of that. And it was like really yellow. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And so I, Googled it, of course, as one does. I shouldn't use Google as a verb. They'll probably, give us a cease and desist. Um, I used the Google machine to search for the term oyakodon, um, and then it said that it was a Japanese dish which included chicken and egg, and the name meant parent and child. And I was like, oh, I have heard of this before. I just didn't know what it looked like. Anyway, so I was then inspired to cook it. So this last weekend, I cooked it for George and I, and
It was delicious.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. But I was gonna say it was delicious, wasn't it?
Yeah, I beat you to it. So
Yeah, yeah, it
you don't
was.
have to.
Yeah, that's right. It was, wasn't it, George?
So just as long as you give me that money, you promise. No, it was
All
super
right,
good.
here's your 25 cents.
I mean, you already made me food. You got to give me money too.
And then George made some sukiyaki today with we had some leftover. He basically used sukiyaki sauce in making the yakodon, and we had some leftover. So he made some sukiyaki today, which was also delicious.
Yeah, kind of like a hot pot with a bunch of veggies and
Yeah, veggies and
things.
like a sweet soy sauce based sauce.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was good.
it was pretty good. Yeah.
We might in the future, keep making. I mean, the sukiyaki isn't from anything this season, but it's kind of fun,
Mm.
see a food in an anime and you want to have it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I do that a lot. Like I see something and I'm like, what is that? And then look it up and then um anyway, I think we've rambled on about
I
this
know.
far enough at this
I
point.
like. I
So
needless to say, I like Super Cub. I'm
mm,
even more interested than last week.
Koguma has a friend, and judging by the opening credits, there are more friends to come as well. So there's like that whole
Yeah,
yeah,
spoiler.
it's all going to develop. I mean, it's in the opening credits.
No, I know, I know. Well, the opening credits, sometimes with shows like
Often.
these that are sort of a slow burn,
Yeah.
it's like, oh wow, like okay.
Yeah, you see like 12 characters and you're like, I don't know any of them yet. And then one of them gets introduced and you're like, oh, I'm going to meet all 11 of these other ones too, aren't I?
Yep.
Yeah, that's how anime works.
Which is cool. It's not a
Yeah.
very spoilery show. So
Yeah, it's super like Yashike chill, just whatever. So, yeah, she's got a friend. That's exciting. She is sort of breaking out of her shell a little bit, or at least trying to. Um, and yeah, that's Super Cub. Super great. You said earlier that it's like you were a 6 last week and now you're a 7. Is that
Mhm.
what you said?
Yep.
I think I was a 7 last week.
No, you were a 6 because I was surprised because
Oh,
this is
I took a point away for animation issues.
yeah.
Which
I thought we're a little improved.
yeah, I don't remember noticing them as much in this episode. So yeah, so I have it as a 7 for this episode, 7 overall,
Hmm,
trending upwards, I guess. So yeah.
same. We're on the same wavelength.
All right. And then next up, we've got the Tony's super brief ONA block where I talk about ONAs for a minute. So start the timer. Househusband. I was wrong about this show. Not all of the mini episodes within the episodes are the exact same thing. Like I said before, that like you've got the he's a former Yakuza and he's a house husband, and it's always like interpolating those two things where it's like, oh, he's a Yakuza, but he's a house husband, or oh, he's a house husband, but he's a Yakuza. Yeah. So in this, the very last episode of the episode was about a cat that was trying to poop, but another cat kept bothering him. So 5 out of 10. Moving on. Godzilla episode 3. This episode felt a little bit like a filler. It was more actiony. There wasn't a whole lot of story stuff going on, but it's still interesting, and I still am enjoying it. 6 out of 10 on that one. Shaman King episode 2. This one felt like it is. Is this based on a card game? Is there a Shaman King card game? Is that what it's based on?
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's based on the manga. I mean, there might be like a card game that came out of it, but
because this felt very much like I was watching an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh or Card Fight Vanguard. Honestly,
okay.
like there was like the I summon my blue. It was Anyway, so 5 out of 10 dropped it. Just not interested enough to keep going. The writing in the first episode was really good, and in this episode it was just like I don't know, like I don't know if it's very like off from the manga or what, but it really felt like I was watching an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh or Card Fight Vanguard where it's like, hey, we're going to show you this super cool monster thing that you can buy a card and you can beat all your friends with it. You know, like it felt like that.
Yeah, just kind of.
It felt very sales pitchy.
So you're dropping Shaman King and you're dropping House Husband as well?
No, House Husband I'm still going with.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was mostly like I was joking. Like I was wrong about it because there's this one episode about a cat trying to poop.
See, that sounds more interesting than the other, but all right, well, we'll get to hear more.
It's
that.
literally the same gag every mini episode, except for that one, but it's not bad, and I would like it better if it was an actual short where each of these mini episodes was an episode in and of itself.
Yeah.
The way that they've presented it, with there being 6 episodes of 6 mini episodes within. I don't know. It's still like watching a short for me, so it's very easy to just sort of squeeze it in. It's only 16 minutes for an episode, of which there are 6. And my ONA block needs to, keep a little bit filled, at least until the next one comes out on, I think, the 26th of this month is the next one that's going to be added to the ONA block. So I can drop Shaman King because I'm going to add something in a week or 2.
Okay.
So Yoru no Kuni.
Night World.
Night World. Country of Night, I think, literally. But so this is episode 1. It's an online YouTube short. It seems to be, from what I read, all of the episodes are based on a different song on the album of the artist whose name I forget, who recorded the song for this one, the opening or ending or whatever it was. Anyway, this first episode appeared on that artist's YouTube channel, and I'm not sure how the other episodes are being released. It's only 7 minutes. It's a quick watch. The art was nice. The animation was a little rough or incomplete feeling, I guess. Just like there could have been more full motion in it, but I think it might be just a stylistic choice that they made as well, not necessarily a budgetary choice. But yeah, the art was really nice. The story was pretty simple and basic. I'm not sure like where the story goes from here, if it's going to be sort of a different different episode every episode. That doesn't make sense if I say that, but a different theme every episode, a different character. So there's this character Yoru, which means night, but and he talks to this little girl, and that's basically the extent of this episode, without giving any spoilers or going into it too much. So I wonder if it's going to be the same little girl next episode, or if there's going to be someone else that interacts with Yoru next episode, because it seems like Yoru is sort of the central thing of this.
Okay. So it's hard to say at this point.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where it goes, but yeah, I gave it a 6 out of 10. We'll see where it goes. Like I said, I'm not even sure where to watch any more episodes of this. There was just the one that I know was premiering on the 16th, and I watched it. And we were gonna watch it while we were eating, but we forgot. So George hasn't seen it. And so ends my ONA briefs.
And what'd you give that?
6 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not sure where it's going. I'm not sure, but it's it's fine. So yeah, I've still got 3. I just dropped Shaman King, and I'll be picking another one up here shortly. I don't know if it's next week or the week after that, but there's another one coming on the ONA list. And it's a Netflix.
Okay.
All gonna drop at once, sort of thing.
Okay.
Netflix. So
I saw. Is it like sort of a actiony?
yeah, looks like it. I think
Yeah.
it's called Yasuke or something.
Okay,
like
yeah,
that.
I did hear about this, and
Okay.
I wanted to bring that up. Yeah, I'll probably check that out.
Yeah, if you check it out, then you can talk during my ONA block.
There you go.
All right.
I'll be granted permission.
Yes. And now you get to talk even more because I am not watching those Snow White notes.
Yes, those Snow White notes. I like this show. It's the Shamisen show, Shamisen players, and
Wait, I thought it was Shuriken. Hold on. All right, that's enough.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Nobody's been listening that closely to.
No one's getting the callbacks. Dang.
So yeah, this show, those Snow White notes, it's enjoyable. It's a music based show about playing the shamisen, and we have our main character Setsu. I don't know how I'm not gonna delve too deep into this, but basically, his grandfather died, and he was kind of wanted to be him. Basically, wanted to play just like him on the shamisen, and his grandfather's last dying wishes, which I've covered already, but was to give up playing if he was going to do that, essentially, like find your own voice or just give up. And so he's moved to Tokyo now, and he's meeting new people, and he's met this girl who's in a shamisen appreciation club, and she can't play worth a dang. But we found out this episode that her grandmother heard a piece that his grandfather played many years ago by happenstance, and this girl that he met wants to play it or wants to hear it, wants her grandma to hear it again. And so this episode was more about him kind of being won over to trying to play it. At first he was like, no, it's impossible. Like I could never play it like he could. And so it's an aspect of the show that I kind of like, where it's this whole idea of the motivation to create art. Like you have to do it for the right reasons, and you have to want to do it. And so there's at one point in this episode where he's kind of prompted like to show his skills on the shamisen in front of this really skilled player.
Do it. Perform for me, monkey.
And so he does it, but he just doesn't play. His playing is weaker. It's not as inspired as it has been or as it could be. And after that, he kind of reconciles with with those reasons, why you're doing it. And I don't know, it's something I like about the show. I'm very into music in general, and it's a show that's very much about the music and the playing and the passion behind it. And yeah, it's a fun show. It looks really good, and I like it. So it's
Yeah,
a constant 7.
So I watched a clip from this. I was telling you earlier, and yeah, your what you said gives it slightly more context. They did sort of indicate. So the clip that I saw, it's on Crunchyroll's YouTube channel. The girl in his class, she's not listening to the teacher or something, so he comes over and like takes her phone away because he thinks that she's just messing around on her phone or whatever. And her headphones come unplugged, and it's a recording of her grandma sort of humming a tune that she really, really likes, right? And then they show our main guy, whose name I don't know, but
Setsu is his name.
yeah. So they show him, and he seems like he recognizes the tune, and that's pretty much the clip that I saw.
Yeah.
So it gives it a little bit. It was one of his grandfather's songs then.
Yeah, so he recognizes it immediately. And up until that point in class, she, because they had had an interaction before, he kind of showed her like how to set up a shamisen that was like broken down into pieces.
Oh, she's the girl that found the old broken shamisen.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right. Last episode.
yeah. So yeah, I remember that. Um, but in this episode, leading up to that whole classroom scene that you just described, she's kind of shy. Going back to Super Cub, she's kind of shy and socially awkward. But she has a friend that's like, that's more personable and just out there. And so she reaches out to him again and is like, hey, like you should join her club, her shamisen club, and all this yada yada. And he's like, I'm not interested. And he's just kind of being on purpose being this like loner who like is down about what he wants to do in life. And so the episode, yeah, kind of builds up from there after that classroom scene where he kind of becomes intrigued, like I know that song that your grandma's humming. And
So, are there romantic vibes between them, you think, or is it not going that way?
not really, like you can tell that this girl, her name is Shuri, that she likes him, but she's really shy.
Mm.
And then there's this other guy that's like one of her childhood friends that's into her. So you kind
Mm.
of get this like love triangle thing, but our main character, he's just focused on shamisen and like what he's doing in life. And like, yeah, so they're not really playing it up yet so
Yeah.
much
So
to
it's a
that.
it's a love quadrangle then.
Yeah.
With the
Pretty much.
shamisen being one of the
Yes, yes,
corners.
yes. Yeah. And yeah, there's some unrequited love going on there all around.
Yeah, childhood friend. Mm. It sucks to be a childhood friend in an anime, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. You're forever
Mm.
cursed.
I mean, there was that show this season that neither of us are watching. What was it called? Something about the childhood friend won't lose or something.
Oh, yeah. That sounds
Uh,
vaguely familiar.
yeah, it looked terrible, but yeah, their childhood friends don't tend to mm,
Yeah.
do too well.
They're the underdogs.
Yeah. Anyway, it's based on the clip and just your description thus far. I feel like I might go back and watch these 3 episodes and possibly pick this up.
Hmm.
Um,
If you can squeeze it in.
yeah. Well, I always end up with these, like Friday night after I've watched everything. I'm like, what am I going to watch now? So
Yeah.
it might find its way in there. So, and it's actually a Friday show, isn't it? Yeah, it actually comes out on Friday, so that'll fit right
Nice.
in.
Cool. Yeah. If you do, that'd be interesting to talk about it more. I like what it's doing in like on a deeper level, but it's also really fun too. Like I wrote in my notes on this episode, the characters are all likable in this episode. Like last week I had an issue with his mom, the main character's mom, like just a slight thing. I was just getting some weird energy from her. She was
Mm.
humorous, but it was just like what's going on? There's hot mom and some weird sexual
Oh
energy
yeah,
going
yeah,
on, that whole thing.
yeah.
But she wasn't in this episode at all, and it was uh, despite that, but it was very enjoyable, and there's a lot of funny moments too. So it's like even without the whole musical and you know, I don't know that without that whole aspect of it, it's still pretty entertaining.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like not what I thought it was going to be. Um, I don't know exactly what I was imagining. There was the Koto anime a couple seasons ago that I watched some of, and I guess I expected it to be kind of like that. And what was that other one where the kid was learning the guitar and it was a little bit like Shonen Ai stuff?
Mm.
Anyway, I expected it to be sort of one or both of those things, and it sounds like it's probably not
Mm.
either of those things, which means my reasons for not watching it are now null and void. So I should probably watch it.
Well, it's at least in a neutral place for you.
It sounds good. I want to watch it.
Mm.
So we'll see if I do. But yeah, it sounds like I want to watch it.
Cool.
So yeah, that's those Snow White notes. Did you have anything else on that?
It's
Where do
pretty.
you at on rating wise on this guy?
I'm back up to a 7.
7?
Yeah.
Okay. So episode 2 dropped it down a little bit because of the weird sort of HE vibes that were creeping in.
Yeah, which weren't explicit, but we're just kind of hanging there. But yeah, and aside from that, the second episode was still pretty good. But overall, a 7, and I imagine I will see this one out to the end.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I will probably be checking it out. Next up, we've got the spider isekai thing. What's it called again?
So I'm a spider. So what?
No, that's not it. Kumo desu ga nani ka? Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I don't get it.
Sorry. You know what Kumo means.
No, yeah.
You know what desu means. You know what ga
I'm
means. You know
kidding.
what nani means. You know what ka means. You know all these words, George.
Nani?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Spider, we're back with our Spider Girl. So this week there was the beginning of it was Kumiko, our Spider Girl, uh, and she sees a carriage being attacked by some road bandits and decides to intervene and protect the passengers of the carriage, even though she doesn't know who they are. She's just out wandering around and sees them. And I don't know. It's a pretty cute scene overall, but it's fairly short. And then after that, we just go into the human drama, and that takes up the entire rest of the episode.
Mm.
Which, as I've said before, like I'm here for the spider.
Yeah, not
I'm
the other
not
stuff.
so much into the human drama aspect of it. And then I wandered into some forums where people were talking about it, and they were talking about how important the human drama is to the show overall or the
Mm.
story overall, and that
Manga readers, I'm guessing.
light novel readers
Oh,
mostly,
light
because
novel.
it was a
Yes,
light
that's right.
novel originally, and then there was a manga made of it, and now there's an anime being made of it, and each of them handles this separation of two worlds differently. The light novel, you've got chapter one, Kumiko, chapter two, human, Shun, which is our main human character that we know. Chapter three, Kumiko, chapter four, Shun, right? So we're going back and forth like
Mm.
immediately.
Yeah.
The manga adaptation of the light novel apparently thought that the human side was boring, kind of like I do, I guess, and they ignored it. They didn't adapt it.
At all.
They just did Spider Girl for as far as they could until they realized, oh, this human stuff's actually going to come back and matter. We should start adapting some of these chapters about the human, and then they did it in a sort of half-assed way, from what I understand.
Huh.
And the anime is somewhere in between the two, because in the first episode, oh, I guess I should say I read 4 chapters of the light novel because I was curious, what the difference was, how it was handled, and stuff. Um, so yeah, at the beginning of the anime, we're all about Spider Girl, and there's little bits and pieces of the humans, and then they seem to get lengthier and lengthier and seemingly more important as we go along. In the light novel, like I say, it's chapter for chapter for chapter for chapter, back and forth between the two. There's a couple times where it doubles up on one or the other, but for the most part, it's back and forth. And
Oh, wow.
a lot of things in the human world that we don't even learn until like episode 11 of the anime are in the second chapter of the light novel.
Dang.
So I don't know. I might end up actually just going and reading the whole light novel and catching up to where I'm at, and maybe even by surpassing it. I don't know.
Did you barely make a dent, like into the what would be the first season, like as far as the light novel is concerned, with what you did read?
Oh yeah. So I mean the first 4 chapters, which like I say is spider human, of what I read. Uh, Only the spider stuff was adapted. The second chapter, the first human chapter, as far as I can tell, I don't think it exists in the anime at all. None of
Oh,
that.
wow.
None of that exists.
Crazy.
The second human chapter, or the fourth chapter that I read, um, has more overlap into the anime.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. It's I understand sort of why. I don't understand why they did what they did with the manga as far as the adaptation goes, but I understand why they did what they did with the anime as the adaptation goes. Because if you did like an episode of Spider Girl and then an episode of just humans, it doesn't. There's no flow there. It like breaks up too much. I think you would lose a lot of viewers.
Yeah. You probably have people skipping, whichever one they didn't like
Right, right,
at a certain
and
point.
it just I understand sort of why they did it the way they did, where they're trying to, instead of having like a whole human episode, they've at least got in this episode, for example, a little bit of Kumiko at the beginning and then a bunch of human drama stuff that I basically didn't care about. But now that I've been reading the light novel, I have a little bit more information on, I guess, what's going on. Um, and I'm actually sort of more interested in the human characters than I was before. So, yeah, uh, I don't know what to tell. I don't know what to tell anime only fans of this, other than like you should maybe go and read the light novels, because that's what I'm gonna do. But I'm not gonna. I'm gonna try to avoid giving any light novel or manga spoilers or anything.
Are you
Mostly,
going to keep watching the anime week to week, or are you going
yeah.
to? Okay.
I mean, until it completely breaks itself, which I feel might be inevitable at this point. Like
Okay.
it's they've put off this human drama so much that they're having to make the each episode heavier and heavier in the human drama stuff, and they haven't set it up in any way that we care about any of these human characters really.
Mm.
um and at the point that it gets to being essentially what this episode was, if it just does this every week where it's like, oh look, Kumiko, she's cute, oh by the way, human drama, let's watch this for the rest of the episode, and it just gets like that every week, I think they've broken the anime. It's
Yeah.
not going to be the only in the forums. It seems like most of the people that are into the human drama are people that read the light novels,
Yeah.
and so they like understand the characters and the motivations and stuff like that. And the people that didn't, that are anime only, um, largely don't care about the human side of the story at all. They just want to see Kumiko, right? Which is where I was at too. So I don't know. It's another one that is it's going to go the way of like Fruits Basket and Shaman King and things. Like it's going to get remade properly in a few years, I think.
Okay.
Right now, this one is going to probably end prematurely and be considered bad by a lot of fans,
Oh wow.
I think.
Interesting, considering it's so popular.
Super popular, yeah. And that's because of Kumiko. But as they start getting more into the human drama stuff, they're, I think, going to start dropping viewers. So I
Wow.
don't know. We'll see. They might be able to maintain that line. They might be able to, keep it even keeled.
Mm.
I'm not sure how, but yeah. Anyway, I've talked about this for way too long. Like this is much longer than it's probably because I read the light novel, so I had to talk about that.
Yeah, he got a whole nother.
So this episode, because it's largely human stuff and very little Kumiko, even though the Kumiko stuff is great in its own way, I gave this episode a 5 of 10. It's still a 6 of 10 overall. It's sort of trending downward because I feel like they're going to be doing this a lot more. And until I care about the human drama, it's just going to keep getting worse for me.
But reading the light novel might affect your perception of the anime, right?
Exactly. So
that might be a good thing.
if I do pick up and start reading the light novel week to week and eventually catch up, then I will be much more understanding of the human drama, I think. And I will probably look more favorably on these very human-centered episodes. Whereas right now, I'm just here for the spider.
Yeah, which I'm curious about that, how that'll unfold for you.
I'm curious how our listeners feel. Are you just here for the spider? Leave a comment on, wherever you can leave a comment. Just, hashtag I'm just here for the spider. If you are into the human drama and you have not read the light novels, then tell me that I'm an idiot. I like YouTube's the easiest way. Like just go onto YouTube, find the video, leave a comment.
We should have like a Twitter poll on this show.
Oh, that'd be good.
And like either I'm just here for the spider, I like it all, or I only read the light novel.
Yeah, those are probably the three options. Or I read the manga and the anime is better somehow. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I haven't read the manga at all. But we should definitely move on because I feel like I've been talking about this for 15 minutes and this is only an hour show.
Yeah, in quotes.
So next up, The World Ends With You, the animation. So I dropped this after last week because I just wasn't sold on the characters and the plot, which plot. I'm air quoting. You can't hear it through the microphone, but I'm air quoting
Heavily.
plot. Yes, aggressively even. So George, tell me, what am I missing?
Would you like me to spoil this episode?
It's fine with me. I don't care. I doubt that anyone cares actually.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a big fan of this, you probably were a big fan of the games, and none of it is a spoiler. I'm assuming. I don't really know. I only played the game like a tiny bit. I didn't really get into it that much. The so this episode, I was interested because I didn't really care. I mean, the first one was just okay. I gave it a 5 out of 10, and but this one I was curious about because it's the name of it was Shiki, which is the main girl, and I was kind of a little more interested in her than our main character.
Mm,
But basically, the big reveal in this is that they are in this game because they've died.
mm.
And so this isn't like, oh, save your existing life. It's like you get another shot at coming back alive if you can win.
Oh,
So there's a lot more on the line than the first episode, would have you believe. We didn't really know much
you
of
get a
anything.
you get a buyback at reincarnation sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And so with this girl Shiki in particular, and before she died, she had a really good or a close friend that designed clothes, and then she was a sort of a seamstress, and she would make these clothes, and so they had this kind of relationship. And then we also learn, and so like she kind of encounters this girl that that she was friends with because they can see other people but they can't interact with them,
Oh, right, right. Yeah.
except actually they can interact with them. They introduce this
Wait, what?
they essentially can do this thing where they can like send a thought to them or introduce
It
some sort of
because they have that whole feelings thing that's going on.
yeah.
I think maybe they even like hinted at or set that up in the first episode
Okay.
a little bit, just
Yeah,
barely
it's a
touched
tiny
at it.
bit.
But I can see where that might be coming from. Yeah.
So yeah, that's something they can do, and they do that a couple times. But yeah, we learned that in the game, she like Shiki, this girl, is basically taking on the physical appearance of her friend, and so that isn't actually what she looks like. And so presumably none of the not characters but players in this game, I'm assuming because it's the same for her, that they look different or they looked different in real life. Uh,
Sounds like something they did in Sword Art Online.
oh really?
Yeah.
Well, they have like an avatar or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess I don't know if like she chose to look like her friend or how that that's just something that bothers me about this show so far is like we don't know much and they're revealing things as we go, but it's not interesting enough or set up well enough in a way where it's satisfying. It's just kind of like,
Mm.
oh, okay, well that'd have been nice to know. Like
Yeah.
um
I mean, that's how I felt about it after the first episode, was that it was just like there's just not enough, you know?
yeah, yeah. It needs to we need some more meat on the actual premise and the setup of everything.
Yeah. And maybe a little bit more character in our characters, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, well, it's like some of my notes, like our main character Neku. I wrote he's eased up on the angsty dick shtick. Is what I wrote.
Nice alliteration.
Thank you. But it's like, and so it was a little more palatable. He was very annoying in the first episode,
Mm.
and so it was like, okay, you're not being as much of a jerk, and you're kind of going, helping, your, these people around you and stuff. But and this by the same token, it wasn't like, oh, I'm endeared to him and I care about him all of a sudden. It was just like, oh, you're just not as annoying.
Mm.
And so I
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hanging on by a thread. It's still a 5 out of 10, and I'm gonna give it a third episode because it just seems fair. And maybe there's some shoe that's gonna drop where I'll be like, oh my god, I have to know. But if I had to guess, I'll probably be dropping this a week from now.
Mm. Yeah, we were. So I was looking at our YouTube search terms, like what search terms led to views on YouTube earlier, and The World Ends With You was one of them that is not super high ranking compared to some of the other ones,
Like
but
top three.
it was there.
So,
It was present,
yeah.
and it was more than nothing. So, uh, yeah, if you're tuning in for The World Ends With You because you're also confused, not necessarily confused, that's the wrong word. You're also bothered by how lackluster it is, let us know. We'd love to know that it's okay to drop the show, I think.
Yeah, it'd be
Like,
nice to have some input on it. I mean, if you've played the game especially and you know how the story unfolds in that regard, like is this doing it justice? Is this satisfying to you?
yeah, is there a reason for us to keep watching this? That's another good one. Just
Yeah.
let us know, man. We're on all the socials.
Are you waiting for some big thing to happen that
I'll cover it at the end, but all the socials, just, let us know in whatever way you can. So yeah, it sounds like it's going the way I thought it was going to go, which is disappointing. It was disappointing for me after the first episode, and
yeah,
it sounds like it continues to disappoint. So,
kind of going through the motions and yeah, so I'll give it one more.
all right, well, maybe this next one's going to blow us all away, and you're going to convince me that I need to start watching it again. Barring that, we're going to talk about Blue Reflection for a while. And I don't just mean in the episode. I mean, I'm going to keep talking about this show for a while because I don't see me dropping this anytime soon.
All right. A show you like.
I do like it. I honestly, I felt better about it after episode 1 than I do after episode 2, but it's still good.
Okay.
So I don't know how to talk about this show other than just like to recap the plot. Because thus far it's still sort of setting things up and world building, and I don't know.
I remember there's a magical girl element, and there's
Yeah.
a ring that is found, and there's
Yeah.
the colors, and
There's rings and different colored rings and stuff like that. Yeah. So in this episode, motorbike girl, whose name is Momo. I wrote that down so that I would, stop having to use these
Nice.
these pseudomonyms that I've given them.
I've been doing that too. After the first episode, I'm like, okay, I should know
Yeah.
these names.
Right.
Momo.
I should probably keep track of these now. So yeah, Momo just spews forth some exposition for all of us viewers because that's what lazy writing does. She tells the girls what the rings are all about. Basically, apparently they're linked to your feelings, and girls who use the rings are called reflectors. And I guess if you decide to be a reflector, you work for an agency called the AASA, which I think they might tell us what that stands for, but I don't remember. And she doesn't really tell us anything more about this agency or whatever, just that, like, you've got a ring, you can choose to be a reflector or not. Reflectors protect girls from the red reflectors. So there's a blue reflectors, and then there's the red reflectors. So the red ring girl that we talked about last episode, she would be a red reflector.
And are they bad in some way, or just opposite?
Well, I can't say 100% for sure that they're bad, but they are definitely characterized that way. They're portrayed that way.
Okay.
Yeah, the red ring girls, they use negative emotions for the emotions that they harness to use their powers, whereas blue reflectors use, I guess positive emotions, feelings, whatever. The red reflectors are essentially out to find, it seems like anyway, find girls that have these negative emotions, and then they capture them and they take the emotion out of them. They
wield that emotion as some sort of power or something, or
I don't, like, they're collecting it or something. I'm not
Okay.
sure on that, but so the emotion that you use to, use your power, they call a fragment. And in these other girls who aren't reflectors, it's still called a fragment, these negative emotions that they have. So they're trying to capture this fragment from these girls that have these negative emotions. And I use the word confusing too much. It's not confusing. It's just unclear, I guess, exactly why they do this, but it just seems to be what they do, the red reflectors.
Okay. Yet
Um,
to be revealed, perhaps.
yeah, and so the blue reflectors, like their job with the AASA, is essentially to protect non-reflectors from red reflectors. Does that all make sense?
Okay.
Am I explaining it well?
Yes. Yeah. The red reflectors are preying on the normal people on their negative emotions,
Yeah,
and yeah,
and the blue reflectors are
protecting.
stopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And that's set up just in a very broad sense. Reminds me of The World Ends with You, just with all
Hmm.
because in the game they're playing, the negative emotions are what create these enemies that they have to
That's
fight.
true. That's true.
But that's the only really similarity.
Yeah. I mean, based on my experience between the two, there's more. The characters have more depth. Even Motorcycle Girl
Mm,
Momo um, has more depth, even though she's just so far sort of an exposition machine.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know. There's just I care about what she says more than I care about any characters in The World Ends with You.
which
Uh,
is fair. The bar is pretty low there.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, so anyway, after the whole exposition dealy with Momo, uh, Luca and Window Girl, whose name is Hiyori,
Okay.
um, they talk for a bit, talk about the exposition that they've just been given, and Hiyori decides that she wants to become a reflector. She wants to, protect other girls or whatever. But Luca is still unsure. Luca's kind of she's kind of an odd girl. She's that outsider trope, similar to Super Cub that we were talking about earlier, and she's very angsty about interactions. Like she doesn't want to. I would say she probably just doesn't want to interact with other people at all if she could help it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Hiyori refers back to the first episode where she and Luca were walking together, and Luca saw this girl who was feeling badly, I guess, about something. She saw her like through a window and like sort of focused in on her and like stopped walking as they were walking together. And that clued Hiyori in to the fact that this girl was feeling bad. And then Hiyori ran down and was like, "Oh, what's wrong? Are you okay?" And all that stuff that Luca couldn't do. But Hiyori says, "Yeah, but I couldn't do what you did, which was notice." So Luca sort of takes it all in, sees everything that's going on around her, but is afraid to outwardly interact with it. Whereas Hiyori is very quick to react to these things once she notices them, but just doesn't really notice them.
Okay.
That's sort of the whole vibe of this conversation that they're having.
Yeah. So they have a good dynamic in service of what they're trying, protecting these other people.
Right. And like I say, Hiyori is like, yeah, I'm all gung ho to be a reflector, which sounds like her character. And
Mm.
Luca's like, I don't know, I'm just not a people person, which is definitely her character. So anyway, they have that conversation, and then next we sort of skip to a scene with the Red Ring girls, the one that we saw in the first episode, and a couple others, which they all refer to each other as sisters. I'm not sure they're actual sisters or if they're just sisters,
Yeah. Have a
sisters in the ring
kinship.
sister. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so there we see a little bit more of that and them sort of plotting to try again with the kidnapped girl from the first episode, the girl who sort of got kidnapped by the Red Ring girl and then was rescued and everything. So they're still, trying to focus in on her because she has these negative emotions, and we're given a little bit more information about those negative emotions. Essentially, like her parents like her brother more because he wins trophies. Seems to be the gist of her negative emotions, where
Mm.
they're coming from. Anyway, then later back at the dorm. Oh well, actually, so during the scene where we're learning more about the kidnapped girl's negative emotions and stuff, she's just all angsty and stuff, and decides to go for a stroll in the middle of the night. As one does, I suppose. Anyway, back at the dorm, at the same time, we've got Luca and Hiyori are hanging out, and Luca notices her ring is glowing, and so Hiyori's like, "Oh, we have to go and save whoever it is that's being affected right now," or I forget how they phrase it exactly.
Hmm.
So she and Luca go and I guess follow the ring, use the ring as a guide to follow to where this incident is occurring, and they find um, formerly kidnapped girl being again kidnapped by Red Ring Girl and one of her sisters. So one of the two of the red
Okay,
reflectors have
so she
kind of
brought a backup.
yeah, her sister came with her, the older sister
Hmm.
came with her, and yeah, and then they start sort of extracting this fragment, this emotion fragment thing from her, which looks sort of like a lotus flower with like some vines growing out of it into the sky, but it's all ethereal looking and stuff like that.
Okay,
Um, don't know how to describe it, but other than that, uh,
visual metaphor for
but
something.
yeah, and then so they're extracting the fragment, and Hiyori goes all like "Kira Kira, magical girl, sparkle sparkle." Sorry, in English. Um, does her magical girl transformation, pulls out a sword, and Luca just sort of stands there like, I wonder how this will turn out. I guess, and roll credits.
Is Luca, because she's the one that's a little like socially,
Luca's our main character. She's like the main girl, and yeah, she's the
she's a
one
little
that's very
skittish.
yeah.
Is she kind of frozen in this? There's this stuff happening, or is she just a bystander? Just kind of observing.
Maybe a little bit. I don't know that it's so much that she's frozen. It's just like I think she her low self opinion says that she wouldn't be able to do anything useful, and so she does nothing because she thinks that's more useful than trying to do something and failing. I guess.
Okay.
Um, Maybe that's sort of my read on it. I guess.
Well, she'll probably have an arc of coming out of her
I mean, yeah,
shell.
it's sort of this has to go the way of like she decides to go sparkle sparkle magical girl transformation. I'm assuming the next episode, the way it's going to go is Hiyori is going to get her butt kicked, and Luca's going to be like, "I have to do something,"
Yeah,
and
she'll be forced to
yeah,
act.
it feels like that's the way it's going now.
Okay.
So yeah, and that's basically where we're at with that. My complaint with this episode was that it had some pacing issues. It wasn't just really evenly paced. There was the whole scene with the Red Ring girls was just sort of drawn out and not terribly interesting and didn't need to exist in the way it existed. And the whole exposition at the beginning was also just straight up exposition, very obviously. It wasn't story there as much as just plot revelations for the sake of plot. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, there were some pacing issues, but I don't know. We'll see. Next episode is battle time, I guess, and probably getting Luca involved, and I'm guessing Momo probably comes into that at some point as well. Um, yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
But it's interesting enough. I'm still on the fence about this. Like I'm sort of up and down. Um, I would give this one a 5 out of 10. Um, but overall, I'm still a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
So we're sort of trending downward with this one, but I think we're probably heading back up next episode. So I don't know.
All right.
And is that it? Is that all we got? You got any other episodes you want to throw in here?
I think all that's left is the special challenge that we introduced last week.
Oh yes. So George, how was the first episode of Flying Witch? I would like to hear.
Flying Witch. That was a show you recommended to me to watch.
It's the show I'm forcing you to watch. Yes.
There's two ways to put that, I suppose. I actually so last week, this was introduced, and you had already presumptively watched a show that I suggested, which is One Piece. Or you watched the first 12 episodes or
One
whatever.
Piece. Yeah, I saw that one coming from a mile away. Come on.
Yeah, yeah. Which if you've been listening, it's pretty obvious, I imagine. So you would already you'd beat me to the punch there. So I can't do that great in return. But I watched the first two episodes of Flying Witch
Oh, good.
in preparation for this week. I'll probably do one a week
Mm.
as we go as we go.
So this was just an extra happy week for you.
That's right. That's right. I had a little extra time. But Flying Witch, yeah, it's a show you like a lot, and you've told me about it over the years, and I've just never seen it. But it's another Iyashike show, which is a healing show, a slice of life sort of subcategory. But yeah, Flying Witch, I like it. It's about a witch who moves to a new town to live with her part of her family. I think it's her cousin and her
Yeah.
aunt. Um,
Yeah. Just somewhat distant relations. Yeah.
yeah,
Cousin and aunt sounds right. Yeah.
and the her cousin is about her age, and so she's I don't know, she's high school age, 16 or something like that,
Yeah.
and she's going to high school there with him, and then he has a younger sister who doesn't remember her because they hadn't her and her older cousin that are about the same age hadn't seen each other since they were really young,
Right.
and the younger cousin of hers is her name is Chinatsu,
Yeah.
and she's great. She's my favorite part of the show so far.
Yeah. Among the top two for me as well.
Okay, nice. But yeah, she's. I mean, the show essentially is very slow paced, as you would imagine, and things that happen are very trivial and don't really have a lot of impact. But there's a lot of really cute moments. I've laughed out loud several times. Since I've watched the first couple episodes, I guess I'll start with the first one. But our main character, I didn't write down her name, but
I don't remember either. It's been so long since I watched it. You know.
yeah, I'll have to.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
I'll be covering this weekly, so I'll get the hang of it eventually. You're gonna look it up, but I'll talk. She's very aloof. She's really bad with directions.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
remember that.
which is an endearing quality,
Yeah.
and also reminds me of One Piece. Zoro, the swordsman. It's one of his sort of quirks is that he's
I kind of remember that too. Yeah.
can't find his way out of a paper bag. Um, but when she shows up, our main character, to their house, she's moving in. Did you find it?
Makoto
Makoto?
or Makoto, maybe. I don't
Makoto.
know which accent the syllable has.
Makoto. I mean, that's definitely easier for me to say as an American, but
Okay.
so Makoto shows up at the house, and I don't know. It seems like Chinatsu, the younger girl, the sister of the older cousin.
The younger cousin. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the
Yeah.
younger cousin. Seems like she didn't realize that she was coming, or doesn't really know who she is, and so she's very kind of suspicious of her at first.
Yeah,
And
they didn't inform her, I guess. She sort of showed up, and I think there might be a line where the aunt says, "Oh, I told you she was coming," and or something
mm.
like that. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Like, I don't remember the aunt being in the first episode. Like, she's definitely in the second one.
Oh, is she not? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because there's this whole thing of like, oh, she's at work or she's coming home later, and I just remember actually seeing her. She might have been in a scene that I
Mm.
am not
It might have
remembering.
been in the second episode because that suspicion thing I think continues, right?
Well, it kind of wears off because in the first episode, her older brother has her go with Makoto because she's so bad at finding her
Mm.
way. She has guides her to a store to she needs to buy some things because she just moved to town or whatever. And then this
You can only carry so much on your broom, you know.
that's right.
Not a lot of room.
Well, she did have a bunch of packages shipped
Yeah, that's right.
beforehand. But yeah, she didn't have everything she needed, and so they go together, and very very reluctantly does Chinatsu follow, tag along with her. But then that's when she learns that she's a witch, and she buys a broom while they're out and about, and then gets to go on like a flight with her, and it was just so
Yeah.
funny because like. I mean, clearly in this world, witches exist, but this little girl who was so suspicious of her isn't like freaked out at all that she can fly. She's like amazed and then very excited that she got to fly,
Yeah, that's super cool.
which is cool, yeah. But it's just so funny because then they fly to where the older brother is, and he's hanging out with his this female friend he has. Her name is Now. Um,
No.
Now.
Uh-oh.
Now.
Oh.
I have trouble with that. You're just gonna have to learn to
I
accept
know, but I hate it.
it. um, and then so she sees her flying, and her. I mean, I was amused by all this, but her reaction is just mouth agape, but like making no sound or asking any questions. She's just like kind of dumbfounded by it.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean that's they kind of they go to school after that, and um, Makoto is really trying to to spark a friendship up with Now, and there's this whole scene where they're walking home from school together, and the cousin guy cousin has to do something, and so it's just the two of them, and she like finds this mandrake root that's like
Ah, yes. I remember the scene. Yeah.
yeah, and it's very it's sort of
Great.
yeah, it is really great, and it's like a suspension of disbelief, I suppose. But
Oh yeah.
she she leaves Now like on the sidewalk to like go through this tall grass to where she like just hears this mandrake root like I don't know
Mandraking.
yeah, I don't know if it's like crying in agony or like it's
Mm.
like this muffled sound, and she knows exactly what it is. And she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a gift for you." And it's this whole scene, and like when she finally pulls it out, it's like this huge, triumphant task. But like there's like this like mini shockwave that hits the whole town. And then when she finally brings it out, it's like this giant, root, sort of like a radish almost, but like it has a face and it's just like screaming.
Screaming.
it's this, and it's this really funny moment of her presenting this, to her new friend, and her just being like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
That's really good. That was like the end of the first episode.
It yeah, it just makes me want to like everything you've said just reminds it's been a while since I've watched it.
Mm.
Everything that you say just reminds me of the bits and pieces along the way, and it makes me want to watch it again. Yeah.
It's good. It's good. I enjoy it. Second episode. I mean, I have less notes, but the show's gorgeous. Like, and a lot of these Iyashike are. That's kind of like the thing. Like, I imagine if there is one that isn't, like, it's probably not being talked about.
Mm.
But it's just every shot is just really breathtaking, and just want to be there.
Yeah.
And this episode definitely continues that. And yeah, it's really cute. I mean, Shinatsu, the little girl, kind of steals the show again because this weird guy shows up who is wearing a creepy kind of mask, and we find out he's a harbinger of the seasons. He
Mm.
ushers in spring. I'm not really sure what's happening yet, but this is like some lore of this world that we learn. But he just he rings the doorbell to he's looking for Makoto, the witch of the town.
Yeah.
And but Chinatsu answers the door and just sees the mask and just immediately like closes the door and locks it. And then very casually is asking Makoto like, "What's the number for the police?"
And it I don't remember. Is it like a plague mask sort of thing? Like with the big nose one, or I don't remember the
um
mask
it
exactly.
kind of it's like a white mask that has sort of the indentations of the eyes, and then like sort of a nose as well, but the holes are really small, and
Oh,
so it has like sort of this scrunched up features, and it's
okay.
just like otherwise it's just kind of this opaque mask.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so he after she does that, he kind of goes around the house, and like she's like um trying to get their attention, and she keeps slamming all the all the windows shut, and trying to call the police, and then Makoto realizes who it is, and yeah, they have an exchange. um yeah, it's really good. And the second half they find these little herbs that are sprouting near the sidewalk, and they call them bake, and it's like a local delicacy. They like to deep fry them, and Makoto's never had them, so her cousin, the guy older guy, takes them home and fries them up for her. And once again, like Chinatsu, like this is my favorite because she she doesn't like them. She thinks they're gross and they're just for adults. And But so she kind of runs away when she realizes what they're making. But then once they're finished, she like shows up again and just keep like is making like gross out faces at Makoto as she's trying them for the first time. And yeah, I don't know. It's just fun. It's fun, cute, and um, really nice, soothing escape.
Hmm. I'm trying to figure out if that bake thing is a real food or not.
Yeah, I was gonna Google it. I was
I
like,
mean,
dang, we could deep
it
fry those.
it sounds not, but
What
I
had
don't
it?
know.
It had an
Japanese is
actual
weird.
name.
Oh, okay.
Bake was like the local jargon for it.
Oh, okay.
So I might have to cue it up again. That scene to see
Uh,
what they're actually called.
I was trying to think if it was like bamboo shoots or something like that, but I don't.
It almost looks like
They're like little spirally sort of things. Is that right?
no, it almost looks like they're kind of like little almost like a blossomed like flower, like
Mm.
but like green, and it almost reminded me of a why can't I think of the word? Yeah, I can't remember it. We'll have to check back.
Yeah, because if that exists and
Brussels
it's
sprouts.
available,
That's what it reminded
oh,
me of.
Brussels
That's what it
sprouts.
kind of like, not
Oh,
exactly,
okay.
but it kind of looked like a Brussels sprout.
I think that's sort of. I don't know. Yeah, I would. I don't know why I was picturing a spiral in my head. I pictured like a sort of spiraled
Mm.
up thing, but
Which I know what you're talking about too.
that's something else then.
There's a song called "Polk Salad Annie" that refers to those. It has nothing to do with anime,
Oh,
but yeah, whatever those are called, I think I know what you're talking about.
oh, all right. Yeah, we might have to look that up and have that later this week. Um, yeah. So Flying Witch. Yeah, I'm probably gonna start watching it again now. I've just been reminded of so many things that I love. One of the things that you didn't really mention that I love about it, and all Yashike for that matter, is the way it just sort of gives a beat or seven to like everything that happens, right?
Mm.
There's like these long, not dramatic pauses, but these long pauses where literally nothing happens. No one makes a sound. We're just, sort of sitting on the porch looking out at the world or whatever, right?
Yeah,
And like,
yeah.
I think this show does that really well all the time. Um, and I don't know for sure if that existed in these first couple episodes, but I feel like there's so much of it in there that it has to have.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I think, I mean, I was speaking a little bit to that when just talking about the beautiful
Mm,
scenery and the backgrounds and stuff, because a lot of that happens during then, where it's just kind of like showing you like where they're at.
yeah, yeah. That's one of the things that I love about Ayashike in general, and yeah, this show in particular does it really well. And like,
Mm.
yeah, the characters are all so lovable. Even the older cousin, feels maybe a little standoffish at times, I guess.
Yeah, he's just
Um,
got like his own life and
yeah,
friends and stuff, so he's like not always there.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I agree. Like the characters are all very likable and fun, and yeah, it's I really have nothing to detract from it. I It's sitting at a 7 right now. It'll probably become an 8. Remaining consistent, but it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sure once I get through the end of it, I'll miss them when they're gone.
hmm,
But at this point, I enjoy it, and it's been really really enjoyable to watch.
yeah. It's it's one of the Iyashikes that has sort of a story arc over the course of the series. Um, Most Iyashike doesn't. It's just you could literally watch them in any order. This one it does have a bit more story to it, which I don't know, maybe is what makes it so um, dear to me. Is because it has, even though it's not super important, it's still there. It's that thread that connects it all together.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. We're not here to listen to me talk about it. We're here to hear you
Well, a
talk
little
about
bit.
it.
We have back and forth, and hey, each week we will check back in with Flying Witch.
Yeah. So that's Flying Witch episodes 1 and 2. George being an overachiever. Um, so what
Mm-hmm.
am I watching this week, George?
Well, I already came up with one show last week,
Yeah, I
but
watched that one already.
I already watched it
Yeah.
all. So I think for this week, I'm thinking a show that's near and dear to my heart.
So many shows.
That's true. But this one especially, one of my favorite. Speaking of Flying Witch, like uh, one of my favorite places to revisit as far as a story and a universe goes, and I have a lot of nostalgic feelings for is Ranma One Half.
Ah, Ranma. Yes, you have mentioned this probably literally 1,000 times in my presence over the course of the years that I have known you. And you know that I watched the live action TV thing.
Yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
I remember telling I didn't dislike it because I had never seen it before. I was like, yeah, what's this about? And that was a good introduction. And then this last week when I watched the entirety of the first 12 episodes of Ranma One Half, um,
Of course.
it's it parallels the first couple of episodes pretty well, I think, the live action. So
Okay, I've actually
um,
never seen it. I just anime live action. I assume the worst, especially if it's
yeah, I mean
lower budget.
it's cheesy, Japanese comedy television sort of feel to it, but yeah, I had never watched the anime prior to that,
Mm.
but now I have. I've watched the first 12 episodes because I mean this is obviously going to be. I didn't know if One Piece or this would be your first pick, but it could go either way on those. Honestly, they're both sort of equal in my mind as far as how many times you've mentioned them to me.
Yeah, One
Um,
Piece being a more recent, for me, more recent obsession. But
yeah,
yeah,
I guess
Ranma.
that's true. Ranma One Half has always been there, and you have always, yeah, talked highly of it. And it's the mangaka that did Inuyasha, which I think you love, right?
Yeah, Rumiko Takahashi.
Yeah,
She's done Urusei Yatsura and Mai Koku. Yeah, Inuyasha, Ranma.
yeah, and you basically love everything she's ever done, I think, right?
I haven't seen Mai Koku,
Mm.
but yeah, outside of that,
Everything that you've seen that she's done, then.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um,
But she's notorious for not really ending her stories.
uh,
So that's kind of a thing with her. But yeah,
well, I'm not far enough along to know how it ends,
yeah,
but starting off, we've got Ranma and his father who um, fall into some magic springs in China.
yeah. And
That
they swim to China from Japan.
Okay, I don't
And
remember
I
that,
don't
but
remember
I believe you.
that.
It sounds about right. And yeah, they're going into this place with these magical springs that each of them is represents a tragedy that has happened. Someone has died there or something like that, right? And there's
Yeah,
1,000 springs, I think, and there are these poles throughout that they are then like balancing on while they're fighting each other because they're martial artists of
yeah.
some sort.
Like this is
Um,
like an ultimate training ground for
yeah,
them.
this is like the super training because if you fall into one of these springs, um, you'll be cursed. Is essentially all they know at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean they don't entirely like buy into it, but they're like, okay,
Yeah,
whatever.
right. And then of course they both fall into springs. Um,
Weird.
and
Didn't see that coming.
I guess the next thing that we know, we don't see them transformed yet, right? We the next thing we know, they're knocking on the door of Ranma's father's old friend who Ranma's father and Ranma's father's friend have agreed that Ranma will marry one of his daughters, I
Yeah,
think,
arranged
is sort
marriage.
of the
Yeah,
gist of it, right?
yeah.
And they show up there, and it's Ranma's father and some girl, I think, right?
Uh,
Isn't that how it
well,
starts?
they show up a mysterious panda and this
Oh,
strange girl.
is he a panda at that
Yeah.
point? I didn't even remember that. Okay.
So I think it's like
Yeah.
I think it's raining when they show up, and so
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, the gist of it is whenever they get wet with cold water, they transform into a panda. The father transforms into a panda, and Ranma transforms into a Chinese girl. And when they touch hot water, they transform back into themselves, basically. That's the gist of what has happened with this curse. This is
yeah.
the curse that they must
And they
endure.
usually have to boil the water when they need to change back. It's a whole, got to
Yeah.
break out the kettle.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to remember exactly how the story goes because Ranma and his father show up and they're in their altered forms, and Ranma becomes friends with
Akane.
Akane. That's her name. I'm terrible with names, so I'm
Yeah, I
glad
got you.
I'm
I
glad you
know
know
this
all of
show
these.
so
Oh yeah,
well.
I,
Do I know any of the sisters?
yeah,
The
I know
dad's
I know
name?
you know it. So they show up and he slash she and Akane hit it off really well.
Because
And
Akane thinks that her suitor is coming. She's
right,
expecting that, and it's like, oh, it's a girl. Like, well, she's kind of there's a weight lifted.
she's
We're
out of
not,
it,
I
right?
don't have to
Yeah,
get married then.
yeah. And then mm, yeah, I mean, there's I'm trying to move through it a little more rapidly, I
Yeah,
guess, but yeah, it turns out that Ranma is in fact a boy, which I think they find out when he goes to take a bath, but Akane still thinks that Ranma is a girl and walks into the bath. So we've got our little sort of H moment, I guess.
yeah.
Not that it's
Because
super H or anything, but uh, but yeah, she walks in thinking Ranma is a girl and Ranma's a boy, and she freaks out, of course, and that sort of sets up the vibe for the rest of the show because that's essentially what happens every episode for the rest of the show, as far as I watched anyway. Um, she gets mad at Ranma for being a boy, but moving on past that, we've got them going to school. That's the next thing I really remember is them going to school. And when they get there, Akane has many suitors at her school who wish to win her by beating her in battle. That seems to have been the determined method, which at the point that it first happens, we don't know why, but it appears later that one of the boys at the school has declared that that's the only way that you can win her hand is to beat her in battle.
yeah,
So,
and
so
she's a bit of a tomboy.
yeah.
So that's kind of yeah.
So they're walking up to school, Ranma and her, Ranma having never been to the school before, and she's suddenly attacked by all of these boys, and she beats them all because she does this every day. So it's really no difficulty for her or anything. And then Ranma gets into an argument with the boy who initially introduced this idea, I guess. And I don't know, the story gets a little twisty from there. And it's not that it's hard to follow, it's just that it's not as interesting as I would have hoped, I guess.
Mm.
Because like I'm just sort of skipping through it in my memory, and like the next thing I remember is that boy ends up falling in love with the female version of Ranma. But I think that's even like another episode later after
Yeah,
that. Um, and then they get into a fight and they fall in a swimming pool, and Ranma turns into a girl, and he accidentally gropes her. And um, there's a lot of stuff where Ranma and his father are throwing cold water on each other to, you know, annoy each other, I guess, basically. And so the basic gist of the plot seems to be a story about Akane and Ranma sort of finding uh, their uh, feelings for each other. They both seem to indicate they sort of have some sort of feelings for each other. Akane's denying it really hard. She is sort of the ultimate tsundere.
yeah. Fair enough.
And Ranma's sort of oblivious to it. Like, but he's hot and cold too sometimes. Like sometimes he's like, yeah, I don't care, whatever, Akane, do.
Yeah,
And then sometimes he's like, well, he's more caring and feeling.
yeah.
And I don't know. I wish they'd just quit jerking my chain and just let the story be.
Yeah.
Um,
That's kind of the I mean the crux of it because I mean I was watching this show initially when I was like between the ages of like 11 and 14 and
mm,
that's the age roughly where they're at where it's like they're they don't really view each other they don't view themselves as children but they're not yet adults and
mm,
so there's all this very juvenile, sort of stuff going on where it's like, they don't want to admit that they like each other or say anything nice about each other. Like in that first episode, like we learn later that Akane is like more of a tomboy, but then after Akane goes into the bathroom and sees a boy there, she doesn't put it together that like that's Ranma. She thinks it's like some pervert intruder.
Right.
And so it kind of sets the tone of like her relationship of how she perceives him. And then later on, I think in that episode, maybe the next one, he makes some smart ass comment to her about like, you're just jealous because I'm better built, as a girl, and she's this
Yeah.
tomboy, but yet, he's, attacking her insecurities about him being more attractive than she is,
Mm.
but even though he's a dude. And so I feel like that just, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. Like once you know that, then like that's pretty much the setup for the rest of it. There's all these other characters that come in
Mm.
and other people who have fallen into one of the cursed lakes um, there's all these love triangles and it just gets ridiculous from there on. But at the heart of it, yeah, it's really this like will they or won't they thing, wrapped up in a silly wacky sitcom.
Speaking of characters that get introduced later, I almost forgot about. We were talking earlier about people that just inherently get lost no matter where they
There
go,
you go.
and that's one of the first of these type of characters that I think you're alluding to. I don't remember his name, but he's got a vendetta against Ranma because what was it? He took the last yakisoba sandwich or something like that. Something really
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah.
Like his vendetta is like really stupid, and he has tracked Ranma across the earth.
Mhm.
Not that he needed to go as far as he did to track him because he got lost every step of the way and ended up in Antarctica and everywhere else, I think.
Well, and
Um,
also too, I'll add like he stole that bread or whatever at school, and that sparked it, and so he challenged him to a duel. Ranma
oh,
waited in the specified place,
right,
and Ryoga could never find it and just
right.
got
Well,
lost.
he got lost and showed up like 3 days later, and Ranma had given up after like a day of waiting, I
Yeah,
guess.
which
And
is
then
reasonable.
Ryoga's like, "Well, I showed up and you weren't there." Um, anyway, and so yeah, then Ryoga tracks Ranma to China and ends up falling into a spring himself. This is getting kind of spoilery at this point, I guess. So
It's come on. If you haven't, it's from the mid 90s,
19, 19
or maybe it is. Maybe it
I
is
was thinking
earlier.
89
Yeah, it
maybe,
might be
but it
89.
could be
Yeah,
90 something. Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
you might be right.
Um, but yeah, yeah, if you haven't watched it by now, you still got time. It's still out there.
And if
Go.
this sounds interesting, I implore you.
Yeah, so it's a lot of the Ranma and Akane. Will they? Won't they? Sort of like, are they gonna get together? Are they not gonna get together? And that's like the large appeal of this. I think is that central plot.
Yeah,
But then they've got all the inserts like Ryoga and I guess others that are to come still that I haven't seen that spice up the action a bit.
yeah.
So it's
And
got
every time a new character is introduced, it sort of convolutes the whole love triangle, or whatever geometric
oh
shape it
yeah.
becomes. So it does
I
a lot of that, where it's like, oh my god, like
I forgot about the Ryoga love triangle that develops. Yeah, so that's yeah. We're not going to spoil that.
yeah, yeah.
We're
Well,
going
we
to
can
leave
leave it
that
at
for
that.
you. Like that's somewhere around where I stopped watching, but I do remember that that plot development, and it's pretty ridiculous. So if you're into ridiculous, eh, funny, but somewhat annoying tsundere characters that will they or won't they sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Ranma one half might be for you. If you love Inuyasha, Ranma one half might be for you. Um, I think there's probably some parallels that could be drawn between those. I haven't really watched Inuyasha very much, so I don't know. But same writer and a lot of the same will they won't they stuff between the main two characters, right?
Yeah. I think the only difference is that Inuyasha has more action adventure, and it has more of a driving plot. Like there's a main bad guy and they're trying to save the world. There's more of that aspect going on. Whereas Ranma, like I will say about it, like I'm very fond of it. It's a very nostalgic show for me. But for anyone that's interested, like the first season to me, the first 26 episodes or whatever, had a much higher budget, and it looks to me, I mean, it's an older show, but it looks way better than what comes after it. And I have the remastered Blu-rays, and it's just like chef kiss, like looks so good to me, and I love it. You talking about it makes me want to put it on, as did Flying Witch for you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly the same in reverse. So
So for anyone interested, I recommend those first 26. But like after that, there's definitely characters I like and I'm fond of it in general. But like most of the episode plots become like, oh, there's this person that shows up that claims they have, the cure to the cursed, pool that you fell into.
Mm,
So Ranma, I was like, oh, Ranma's got to fight, do this martial arts and fight this person, and then it turns out, oh, it was all a ruse, and
mm,
so like it definitely repeats itself a lot, and it doesn't really go anywhere.
mm.
But as a sitcom, um, I'm I don't know, I'm fond of it. It's hard for me to judge it, I guess, just minus my history with
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I'm the same way with like, I mean, one of the first anime that I ever watched was Dirty Pair, and I
Mm,
love that show.
yeah,
Um, and I love all of the more modern adaptation, manga adaptations, the novels, everything about it. But, from a realistic perspective, it's really not very good. Like I've watched it again and I'm like, I love this, but meh, you know, if I were watching this as a new thing today that I hadn't seen many years ago and have this, built-in fondness for, I don't think I'd like it,
yeah,
honestly. So, um,
fair enough.
I think maybe that might be. I mean, you could probably still watch it and not. I don't know. You see its faults though nowadays more than you did then. I think is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
yeah. So I mean, for me, it's not something that I want to. I watched 13 episodes of it, half of the first 26,
Hmm.
and I don't feel a strong pull to watch any more of it. It was okay. I think is the best that I could say about it.
Okay,
Um, I just wasn't that into it. Like Akane is so tsundere. She just really annoys me. I
it's
mean,
true. Yeah.
she's more Soon than Dere most of the time. And that does actually that did sort of turn around towards the end of the 13 episodes that I watched. Like at the beginning, she's pretty um, likable, affable,
Hmm.
nice. And then she just immediately turns to this sort of ugly, mean character for several episodes, as I recall. But then
Hmm.
once we get to the Ryoga stuff, she lightens up a little bit, and it seems like maybe she's as a character is turning around a little bit. Where I might start liking her again if I continued watching it, but I'm not going to. So
Fair enough. Yeah, and I think definitely that her intensity of getting angry at Ranma like lessens a little bit. It's
mm.
still there, but
Yeah, I mean she's like most of the time is super unjustified in getting angry at him. I think like he's generally trying to be nice to her when she gets angry at him.
yeah,
Most of the time he doesn't care. And when he doesn't care, she's just she doesn't care either,
yeah,
basically. But then when he's trying to be nice, then she gets all tsundere, just yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. It's from a modern perspective, it's a trope that's been done for years.
oh for
From a
sure,
perspective of that show, it could be the originator. I don't think it is, but it could
probably
be.
not. But that's
Um,
another good point. Like it was probably my first, as a young lad, like my first foray into that sort of trope. So it's
yeah.
like to me, I when I think of that, tsundere um, sort of thing, I think of her, and I don't know. So it's
Mm.
yeah, it's
Yeah, and I think
had to
well,
be there. Maybe I don't know.
and I guess I think Urusei Yatsura probably might have claim to first tsundere in what's her name? Lum?
Well, it wouldn't be with Lum because
Oh,
she's like head over heels for
oh,
the main
okay.
dude. I forget his name, but there's another girl among
Oh,
the main
okay.
cast that is definitely tsundere. Like, yeah,
Oh, okay. So anyway, same writer. So maybe that's just that's
yeah,
sort of the tropes that she works in, which probably weren't as tired when she wrote them originally.
yeah.
They're
I mean, she
just
made a whole career out of similar things.
is
So.
is Kaga
Kagome.
Kagome, that's her name. In Inuyasha, is she's not super tsundere, right?
Uh, not as much as not as exaggerated as Akane is in Ranma, but yeah, she is because like her
Mm,
and Inuyasha definitely have that sort of relationship where it's like won't admit that they like each other or even think of each other in that way, and there's several times where he's getting his butt kicked from her,
mm,
for saying saying something stupid or or what have you, but it's a little more um, contained
But
than.
is it that? So one of the things that you often see with tsundere characters is they do something nice for the person that they clearly like,
Mm,
or we're led to believe they clearly like anyway. And then they say something like, "Well, it's not like I'm doing it because I like you or anything. It's just because blah 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 blah."
yeah,
I feel like Kagome doesn't do that, but again, I haven't watched enough of it to know.
yeah.
Um,
I guess not so much in that explicit way where it's like you have to say that, right?
right.
Like,
Whereas Akane does that 17 times in the 13 episodes that I watched. I didn't actually count. That's probably an exaggeration.
I believe it.
But yeah. Um,
Not like I like you or anything.
it's not like I'm doing this podcast because I like you or anything. It's just you asked me to, and I didn't have anything better to do. God.
Cut to 3 seasons later. I love you, man.
Anyway, that's probably enough talking about old shows that no one's ever seen except you and me. Um,
Unless they watch them now.
other people have. I mean, other people
Yeah, yeah,
have.
that's true.
It was, I assume, a fairly popular show at the time. But yeah, let's wrap it up. So that's our podcast. We hope you liked it. We liked making it. If you want to tell us about anything that we said that's not right, stupid, otherwise, if you disagree with our assessments of any of the shows, if we left something out that is super important, um, or if you're just here for the spider, let us know in any of the social channels. We're on YouTube. You can leave a comment on the video of this episode, and we will see it. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of those places. We're at Like Anime, UMLikeAnime. We do look forward to hearing from you. We hope we hear from you. If we don't hear from you, we don't like you anymore.
That's not true necessarily.
We would love to hear from you, though. So, yeah, tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Are you enjoying the format? 3 shows a week. This is, I don't know. Are there shows that do this? Are we the only show that's doing this right now? On anime, maybe.
Let's just not look and just hope.
I don't know.
A league of our own.
Yeah, and if you want to support the show, like I just bought some new headphones this week because I sat on my headphones last week and broke them. If you want to help pay for those headphones, I would really appreciate that. We are on Patreon. If you don't, that's fine too. We just enjoy making the show. Even if there weren't microphones in front of us, we would sit down and we would talk about anime like this. And we hope you enjoy listening to it as much as we like listening to ourselves. Probably more than we like listening to ourselves because we kind of hate listening to ourselves. Anyway, I've talked too much. I'm Tony, and that's George.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.